If you are visiting the amazing city of Kyoto for the first time, be sure to watch this video because in it, I'm going to share everything you need to know. From hidden gems that almost nobody talks about, to how you can beat the crowds at the city's most popular spots. Now, in case you're new here, hi, I'm Christina from happytowander.com. And this channel is all about practical travel advice from someone who's been there, done that. I recently visited Kyoto for the first time as part of Airlo's first ever brand trip, and I have so many tips I really wish someone had shared with me before going, so I hope you find them helpful. Now, this video focuses specifically on Kyoto, but I did publish a general Japan tips video last week, so be sure to check that out for tips on etiquette, food, and other general things. Now, let's talk about Kyoto travel planning tips. First, arriving in Kyoto. Do note that Kyoto doesn't actually have an airport of its own, and the closest ones are Itami or Kansai Airport in Osaka. For Itami, I can definitely recommend the airport limousine bus, which was what we took, and it was super smooth and also affordable at 1,500 yen per person with 2 bags included, which goes to and from Kyoto Station. If you'd prefer to be dropped off directly at your hotel, there's also a shared taxi/shuttle service near me that's more expensive but also more convenient. You could, of course, also do a private taxi from Itami, but this will probably cost between 17,000 to 23,000 yen, so definitely save your money. For Kansai Airport, there's also a shared shuttle for 4,300 yen and an airport limousine bus option for 2,800. But the quickest way is definitely by taking the JR Haruka Airport Express, which also now weirdly is cheaper than the airport limousine bus if you manage to book one of their discounted one-way tickets, which are meant for temporary visitors with a foreign passport. Now, this ticket costs 2,200 yen. Kyoto is also, of course, very easy to reach by train from other major cities like Tokyo, which is only about 2 hours away on the Shinkansen, aka bullet train. Now, in terms of how long to stay, I honestly recommend that you stay in Kyoto for 3 days minimum to get the most of it. And definitely avoid going just for 1 day. There is a lot to do in Kyoto in terms of unique sites and attractions, so trying to squeeze everything into a day or just 2 days is really a recipe for stress. In terms of getting your bearings, Kyoto is officially divided into 11 wards, which are more like administrative divisions that aren't super helpful for sightseeing. Instead, travel and tourism guides will generally break neighborhoods up into ones that have their own distinct vibe, like the famous Gion district, for instance, which is known as the city's largest geisha district, with lots of beautiful machiya townhouse buildings, now home to restaurants, tea houses, and shops. And this district is part of the larger ward of Higashiyama, which is home to a number of the city's most popular temples and attractions, like the iconic Yasaka Shrine and Kiyomizu Temple, along with some of its most popular photo ops like Ninzaka and Sanzaka streets. Now, in terms of where to stay, I do think that Higashiyama or downtown Kyoto are both great bases. And maybe I'm biased, but I stayed in both of them, and I really think they're great depending on your priorities. If you want to experience and photograph Kyoto's most iconic locations without the crowds, then I can definitely recommend staying close to Higashiyama. This is where you'll find some of the most popular sites in the city, where people always advise going either early in the morning or later at night, so really staying close by will allow you to do exactly that. We stayed at the Hotel Ethnographic Kiyomizu Gojo, which was within walking distance to this area, about 15 minutes, and it was super affordable and comfortable as well. We booked the triple room because that's all that was left, and there was honestly so much space, I felt like I was living in luxury, and an amazing view as well. If your priority is shopping and some of Kyoto's imperial sites, however, then another nice area is downtown Kyoto. We stayed at the Ace Hotel for the first half of our trip with Airlo, and it was stunning. You could also walk to main sites like Nijo Castle and the Imperial Palace, as well as Dashiki Market and several main shopping streets. So in terms of convenience, it really can't be beat. That said, you should definitely consider staying in a machiya for a unique cultural experience. Not a matcha, a machiya. These are the wooden townhouses that you see in many parts of Kyoto that historically also had a business attached. This type of building isn't exclusive to Kyoto, but the city is really known for it, so if you want to stay in a traditional house, that's something to look into. Of course, if you want, ryokans are another more traditional option if you want a unique stay and experience during your time in the city. These are the types of accommodation with tatami mats and roll-up futon mats for you to sleep on. And sometimes there's also nice perks like an onsen. Stays typically include 2 meals, and this is definitely a great way to fully immerse yourself in local culture. If you have time though, I would definitely also plan for some day trips or additional explorations, especially ones that are close to nature. Because Kyoto makes a great base for a number of incredible day trips, the main 2 being Nara, which is famous for its bowing deer, which I warn you are super surprisingly aggressive, as well as Uji, which is a town known for its matcha. But that's not all. Kyoto is surrounded by lots of nice natural sights as well, and I think adding a few of these can really help round out your itinerary because you don't want to just stay in the city the whole time. One of my biggest regrets is I didn't have time to venture out and see the amazing nature that's close to Kyoto, but that's definitely on my wish list for the future. Some of the places I'd love to see include Lake Biwa, Kurama and Kibune, and farther out Amano Hashidate. Now let's move on to Kyoto tips for transport and getting around. First, I do have to say, even though it's not to the scale of Tokyo, Kyoto is still a fairly large city. So don't underestimate the journey times between different neighborhoods because they can be quite significant. In other words, don't be silly like me and expect to be able to walk to every major place. So focus on exploring on foot within a neighborhood and then using taxis or public transport to fill larger distances. In terms of the public transport system, public transport in Kyoto does include subways, trains, buses, and a historic tram line. In terms of tickets, the easiest way is to get a digital IC card on your phone. These are basically prepaid cards that you can use for contactless payments in a variety of places, including public transport. Having a card like this allows you to just tap in and out of public transport without needing to worry about getting the right ticket. So it really makes life a lot easier, especially if you can get one downloaded on your phone. In Japan, there are a few different options for IC cards. Because on this trip I went to Tokyo first, I already had a digital Suica card which worked fine, though I have heard that the iKoka card is the main one that's used in Kyoto. They do more or less the same thing though and allow you to just tap your phone at the gate or at the bus rather than have to buy a new physical ticket each time. Apple users can easily load these cards onto their Apple Wallet by going to Add Card and choosing Transport Card, then selecting the one you want. But for people who can't get a digital card, you can get physical cards from train station machines or just physical tickets as you go. Usually the machines will have an English option, so this isn't usually too tough. In regards to which forms of public transport to take in Kyoto, there are only two subway lines, the Karasuma subway line running north to south and the Tozai subway line running east to west. This means the subway itself can't get you everywhere you need like it does in Tokyo. Instead, there's a robust bus network that connects the city, and also some other train lines via JR and private companies like the Kaihan Line, the Hankyu Line, and Kintetsu Line. In any case, use Google Maps and it'll show you the best options. To do that though, and to do a bunch of other helpful things like translating signs and menus, you definitely need to make sure you have mobile data. So on that note, this week's video is brought to you by Airlo, my go-to eSIM provider with packages for over 200 countries and regions around the world, including Japan, where they just hosted their first brand trip, a portion of which brought us all around Kyoto. If you're looking for an affordable and convenient option for mobile data, eSIMs offer a quick solution that is both cheaper than roaming and also easier to set up than physical SIM cards. For those who haven't used them before, eSIM stands for Embedded SIM, meaning they are pre-installed on your device and work 100% digitally to connect you with local telecom networks, meaning data access as soon as you arrive, which is especially important for destinations like Kyoto, where you'll need data to navigate, translate, and find the best places to eat. The best part is you can easily set your eSIM up in advance of your trip, so it's one less thing to stress about. I actually bought my package at the airport before leaving Vancouver and had it all ready to go within minutes using the Airlo app. So if you want to try them out, Airlo is offering a very limited time deal until the end of July where you get 20% off your first eSIM purchase. So be sure to use the code HAPPY20 through this link here to secure this super generous offer. And even if you aren't traveling in the next few weeks, you can just buy your eSIM now and activate it when you do travel so you don't miss out on this awesome deal. And if you need help, you can also check out my complete Airlo guide to see step-by-step how to set your eSIM up. All that said, thanks again to Airlo for sponsoring this week's video. Now let's continue with our next tip, which is that you can call taxis quickly and relatively affordably with the Uber app for convenience. From what I saw, honestly, the bus lines to touristy areas in Kyoto could often be super busy, so honestly, for ease and time, taxis can be such a lifesaver, especially when you have bags or maybe you're traveling with a larger group. It's definitely much more affordable than Tokyo, but most importantly, it's very quick compared to walking or taking the bus. And when you travel, time is money, so definitely worth it. Do note though that Uber in Japan, basically what it does is just call you a taxi, so you do still need to pay the metered fee, and I've had it a few times now where the final price was definitely more than the initial quote. Still worth every penny though. In terms of navigating Kyoto on foot, one tip I do have is to consider skipping the main streets in favor of parallel roads to beat the crowds and also see more of the quieter side of Kyoto. The main shopping street of Shijodori in particular was one that I found to be a nightmare, to be honest, because it was just so congested all the time, but really 1 or 2 streets over it's way quieter, and there's loads of cute smaller restaurants and bars to admire. And as a final note on getting around, it might actually be worth getting a bike to explore some areas like the Imperial Palace. That park is absolutely massive, and honestly, I felt like I was walking for years. And generally speaking, central Kyoto is quite flat, so it is well suited to cycling if you're into that, and there are lots of options for renting bikes in Kyoto as well. I've heard the most popular option is probably KCTP, because while bike share programs do exist, a lot of them don't work well with non-Japanese phones, so do look into ones that cater more to tourists. Now, let's move on to a very important section, which is Kyoto food and drink tips. First off, do try some of the local specialties that Kyoto is well known for. Obviously, you'll have no trouble finding all kinds of great Japanese food in Kyoto, but some of the more famous bastions of Japanese cuisine aren't actually historically a staple here, like sushi for instance, given the fact that it was historically quite tough to keep seafood fresh before modern methods became popular. So there are loads of local specialties here in Kyoto that you probably haven't heard of. Some more uniquely Kyoto must-tries include obanzai, which is home-style cooking specific to Kyoto, where at least half the ingredients have to be produced or processed in Kyoto, and is based more on small dishes full of fresh seasonal ingredients. And if you have the budget for it, kaiseki is another popular type of dining experience in Kyoto, which involves a multi-course meal grounded in artistry and finely crafted dishes. There's also kyosushi, which is a local take on sushi that's made with cured rather than raw fish, as well as wagashi, which are the special sweet treats that often accompany tea. I honestly find them super pretty to look at, and often they're made of rice flour, so they're very fun and squishy. Of course, there's also all things matcha, especially matcha coming from the beautiful city of Uji, just south of Kyoto. And while all the photogenic matcha ice creams and desserts that you see these days aren't the most traditional, they are definitely delicious, so well worth trying. Next, I do have to say, yes, you should browse Nishiki Market for the experience, but know that there is definitely better value to be found elsewhere. Nishiki Market is a super popular place to get food for tourists in Kyoto and has become probably one of the most sought after tourist locations, packed with endless stalls selling photogenic and interesting looking foods. But I do think the main appeal here is really just how many cool foods you can find in one place, and it is a fun spot to explore, but it's super crowded, prices tend to be higher, and there's not a ton of space for you to properly enjoy your food either, because walking and eating is prohibited and perching spots are fairly low in number. I will say though that the 100 yen sake is a phenomenal deal. Now, instead of just going to Nishiki Market for food, I would say to explore the market, maybe grab some snacks, but explore some of the areas around the market for a more pleasant sit-down meal experience if that's something that you're looking for. This market is super central in Kyoto, so there's tons of great options nearby. Kamehameha, for example, is a really good okonomiyaki place nearby, but yes, if you just wander around the area in the market, you'll find tons of shopping and tons of food options. Another niche food tip I have is to, at least once, book a place with a nice, nature-oriented view. Again, one of the distinctive perks of Kyoto for me is how the city is integrated into the beautiful nature surrounding it. So I do think it's worth enjoying at least one meal where you are openly facing that nature. Sure, this usually comes at a slightly higher price point, but the experience is really worth it. We ate at Otowa Saryo near Kiyomizu Temple, and it was super nice with great views of the mountains and surrounding area. But there's loads of other places that offer riverside dining, also known as Noroyuka or Kawadoko. I think I'm butchering all these pronunciations, I'm so sorry. Finally, if you're interested in sake, do be sure to check out Fushimi in the south of Kyoto for lots of fun sake spots and breweries. This is an area known for its sake, with over 40 sake breweries just in this one district alone. And while it's not a super hidden gem anymore, I can definitely recommend coming in the evening after day trip crowds have filtered out and going to the Fushimi Sake Village. This is a really cool food market type spot with quite a few different food vendors and one bar that does amazing sake specials, like one tasting platter with 18 sakes from local brewers. Super fun and worth it. Now, let's move on to some Kyoto attraction tips. First, you should definitely accept that you won't have time to do every single thing, so be sure to leave room in your itinerary to breathe. Kyoto is an incredible city that's home to no fewer than 17 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, so one of my top pieces of advice is to not stress yourself out trying to see every single one. I would also advise you plan to do the most popular areas early in the morning and later in the evening time. I had an amazing time in Kyoto because honestly, up until the last day, I was able to dodge most of those massive crowds that the city is infamous for. So here's a quick rundown of the busiest places in Kyoto and how you can avoid the crowds. In Higashiyama, particularly the streets leading up to and around Kiyomizu Temple, like Ninenzaka and Sanenzaka, that's a super busy place, but I did that early in the morning and definitely recommend doing it this way. If you go before 9 a.m., the streets aren't empty, but much quieter, so you can see some of the iconic photo spots. Then as the shops open around 10 to 10:30, you can explore those. There's lots of nice ones, and I think it'd be a shame for you to miss them just because you came at night, because most of them actually close by 7 p.m. I will say though that this is based on my experience in June. I think if you're coming during a more peak season, like during cherry blossom season in April, you have to get up way earlier than that. I've heard even 5 a.m., 6 a.m. is not early enough. So just keep that in mind depending on what season you're visiting. If it's a peak season, you have to prepare to get up early. There's also the Fushimi Inari Shrine, and to beat the many crowds, you can opt to either visit early in the morning or late in the afternoon and early evening, which is what we did. In either case, just keep walking upwards and the crowds really dissipate so quickly. There's about 10,000 of these gates in total, and it's about a 40-minute walk up to the top, but pretty much nobody ever goes really beyond the first few sections, so you can easily find places to yourself. Other places that are super busy with crowds include the Golden Kinkakuji Temple, and of course the Arashiyama Bamboo Forest. Going super early would probably be the best option for these two. Kinkakuji, for instance, closes at 5, so going late isn't really an option. And while the Bamboo Forest itself doesn't have opening hours, all the shops and restaurants in Arashiyama start to close around 5, so you won't have much to do if you get there late. And of course, you should also know which attractions you need to book in advance. And make sure you set calendar reminders so that you don't miss the boat. I have to say there are a few super popular things in Kyoto that do require advanced booking, so here they are. First, there's the Sagano Romantic Train, and tickets for this can be purchased starting at midnight 1 month prior to the boarding date. Definitely book the rich car if you want the one with no windows and a glass floor so that you can take better photos. Another super popular train is the Oniyashi Sightseeing Limited Express to Nara, which is just a fancier train that is slightly quicker, but because it's so pretty, it usually sells out within minutes, and tickets are released 30 days in advance for that. There's also the Gear Nonverbal Theater, which you have to book a few weeks in advance usually. And lots of popular tea ceremony places also tend to book out, though don't worry, there's loads of them. Within 30 minutes of Kyoto, there are also some super popular spots like the new Nintendo Museum, which opens up a booking lottery literally 3 months in advance. If you win the opportunity to get tickets though, then you buy them 2 months in advance. It's honestly wild. So yes, make sure to set those calendar reminders. Now, my next tip is to definitely break your sightseeing up by region so that you don't have to backtrack too much. So for instance, this is kind of what I would do. Maybe one day do Eastern Kyoto, which includes Higashiyama with the famous Gion district and countless temples and shrines. And then you have Central Kyoto, including downtown with all its amazing shopping and main sites like the Nishiki Market and the International Manga Museum, plus some of the top historic sites like Nijo Castle and the Imperial Palace. Then you have Southeast with Fushimi Inari and the Fushimi Sake district, and Western Kyoto with Arashiyama and its many sites like the Bamboo Forest and Tenryuji Temple. You can also bundle that up with Northwest with the Kinkakuji Golden Temple. Now, to make this kind of plan, what I would do is star all your must-dos on Google Maps, then group them based on location. Doing this will also allow you to explore the neighborhoods much deeper and find your own hidden gems as you go. That said, something I would really recommend is you should include an experience in your itinerary to break up all the sightseeing. It's honestly very easy to get overwhelmed in Kyoto by all the seeing of sights, from all the temples and shrines to museums and everything in between. But to properly enjoy the places you're going to, I would definitely book some experiences in as well, whether that's watching a performance or enjoying a tea ceremony or one of the many cool classes that they offer in Kyoto, where you make your own souvenir, from knives to miniature food replicas and calligraphy. You should also try to pencil in some relaxing activities in between all the touristy stuff as well. And this is going to make me sound like such a grandma, but so much of the charm of Kyoto for me is just a tranquil vibe of the city, even though you don't really feel that when you're in the touristy areas. But I promise you, there are little pockets of peace everywhere you go in the city. So at some point during your trip, just go for a walk. You can go for a walk along the river, which is beautiful. I've also heard great things about the Philosopher's Path, which is meant to be super peaceful. Or if walking isn't your thing, just enjoy a cup of tea in a quiet tea house. There's really so much to see and do in Kyoto that's easy to feel overwhelmed while you rush from place to place, but don't rush, soak in the vibes, and I promise you're gonna love it so much more. Now, do remember that there's less touristy alternatives to almost every major attraction in Kyoto. Yes, of course, it can be very crowded, but specifically, it's just crowded around the most popular top 10 must-sees. Outside of those spots, you can still find entire places completely to yourself. So if you're okay with doing things that are a bit more offbeat rather than the most insta-famous things, then know that outside of these main temples and shrines, there are thousands that are really beautiful and infinitely more peaceful. One of my personal favorites was Genko-an, which is famous for its ceilings. This is actually one of a handful of temples with ceilings that use repurposed floorboards from a huge mass warrior suicide 400 years ago during a castle siege, but you can still literally see bloody footprints and handprints on the ceiling, which is wild. But yes, if that's not your thing, I really just came across so many fun shrines and temples just from walking around. So yes, keep in mind that there's not just the top 5 in Kyoto, there's thousands, so keep your eyes open. Even in terms of bamboo forests, yes, Arashiyama is the biggest and most famous, but there's many other places you can see bamboo in the city. Even Kodaiji Temple in Higashiyama has a small one, and that was quite nice, and I've heard this one is great as well. And if you explore beyond just the central core, there is loads to see as well. My biggest regret is I really didn't have time to go out of the city to see some nature and do some hiking in the nearby mountains, but definitely next time. If you're up for going farther afield, there's even an official tourism initiative over at kyototourism.org that showcases another Kyoto, so be sure to check that out. Now finally, let's conclude with some Kyoto tips for once you arrive in the city. The first one is to obey the various signs and avoid being a rude and disrespectful tourist. Unfortunately, Kyoto in recent years has become a bit of a poster child for over-tourism, making headlines constantly about new measures to fight back against poor tourist behavior. Even the slogan on the posters is "Enjoy and respect Kyoto," so that kind of tells you what kind of terrible behavior they've been dealing with. So just in general, make sure you're considerate. To me, lots of this stuff is common sense, but don't leave your trash out in public places. Don't be loud and disruptive. Don't sit down in front of shops and block the entryway. Don't stick your camera in people's faces without asking. And in general, if you see any signs in English, give them a quick read and be sure to respect any rules that they state, like no photography, because those signs are definitely geared towards tourists. And of course, make sure you visit the city's many historic shops while you're exploring. In contrast to Tokyo's mega malls and endless stream of big designer shops, I thought one of the defining characteristics of Kyoto was how many small historic shops there were, from centuries-old stationery shops to a confectionery shop that's been making the same sweet treats for over 1,000 years. So make sure you pencil in some time for popping into these shops as you go. The trouble is, a lot of them might not be easy to find on Google Maps because their names are in Japanese, or they don't have much of an online presence. So my best tip is really just to keep your eyes open and choose your own adventure. But if you want a one-stop shop with lots of options, the Kyoto Handicraft Center and Kyoto Ceramic Center are both good starting points, though I honestly think just walking around and finding the smaller shops is more fun. All that said, there's lots of great modern shops too. The Shinpukan shopping area was near the Ace Hotel where we stayed, and it had so much cool stuff, and there were loads of interesting thrift shops and things in the area as well. Do note though that many shops and food places in Kyoto actually don't open until 10 to 11 a.m. And this can be a bit of a pain since you have to wake up really early to enjoy the city crowd-free, so definitely plan accordingly. The good news is hotel breakfasts tend to open pretty early, so that might be a smart option to opt into. And luckily, convenience stores will be open for all your snacking needs at any time of day. On the flip side, do beware that shops and attractions actually close pretty early as well, so do plan accordingly. In my experience, most of the major attractions were actually closed by around 5 p.m. and a lot of smaller shops were closed by 7. So if you want to do artisan type shopping, do keep that in mind. But shops in malls and shopping streets tend to be open later. And don't worry, many shrines and temples are open 24/7 and are beautifully lit, so you can visit them after hours. Just know that the areas selling charms and goshin, which are these cool official stamps you get from places of worship for a small fee, those usually won't be open. Speaking of stamps, I do mention this in my general Japan tips video, but I'm gonna mention it again because it's like my favorite thing. Definitely don't forget to grab the free Eki stamps at train stations and attractions around Kyoto. This is one of my favorite souvenirs I got, and Kyoto has so many great ones at pretty much any train station that services the limited express train, as well as the main tourist sites like the Manga Museum and the Samurai Ninja Museum, which actually had different samurai crest stamps, so that's super fun. And hot tip if you love stamps, the Traveler's Factory store actually has lots of super cool stationery and travel goods, along with an incredible stamp station as well. All right, thanks so much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more travel videos just like this one, and I'll see you next time. Bye!